Just wanted to ask you whether you asked Michelle Obama to be your running mate.
Woo-hoo! I'm here for that. I'm here for that. So it's the gentleman right there in the black. Yeah, that's the last question.
I'd do that in a heartbeat if I think there's any chance of her doing it.
And we have a new front runner for the vice presidential nomination tonight, Michelle Obama. We're back with Lily Adams and Yamiche Alcindor. So the New York Times today does this big editorial about how dumb the primaries are. This is kind of a 4-year anniversary of doing these kinds of editorials. No one likes the non-representative nature of Iowa and New Hampshire. It doesn't look like the United States of America, so it certainly doesn't look like the Democratic electorate. The Times mentioned that. They also mentioned the fact that on this large slate of candidates, which is common in the presidential primary, there should be ranked choice voting. That you should be able, as say in California, I know I've heard from a lot of people saying they have a first choice, but they're worried that their first choice might not make the 15% threshold. So, then who should they vote for? And if they had ranked choice voting, it wouldn't matter. You could just vote for whoever you wanted to. And eventually, for people who didn't clear the 15% threshold, the second choice on that ballot that you cast would then move over to people who are above the 15. And so, Lily, you've been through this process professionally a couple of times. Does the Times have it right?
Yeah, look, I think, when this whole cycle plays out, this primary process doesn't just need a makeover. It needs full reconstructive surgery. I think we're going to have to look at what states go first. We're also going to have to look at caucuses, which a lot of the times give more delegates to people who have less voters voting for them. If we are going to be a party that rails against the Electoral College, then we can't tolerate these kinds of contests that aren't, giving the most delegates to the person that got the most voters. So I do think, there will have to be a reckoning about what this process looks like in, I hope, 8 years from now.
Yeah, and Yamiche, after the Iowa disaster, there seems to be unanimous consent that the caucus system should not be repeated. It should all be primaries with ballots and voting booths and one person, one vote.
There will definitely have to be a robust conversation about the primary process. I've talked to a bunch of voters, especially in South Carolina, where I just came from, who are frustrated with the idea that the base of the Democratic Party is largely black women, but they have to come after states that are less representative, like Iowa and New Hampshire. I also think that when it comes to voter ranking, one candidate who would really, really benefit from that is Elizabeth Warren. I talked to a lot of black women who like Elizabeth Warren, but who think other people don't like her as much. And as a result, they're looking at Joe Biden or they're looking at Michael Bloomberg or others because they're nervous that their first choice isn't going to be able to make it. If you had a ranking system, the voters that I've talked to seem like they would like it because they would be able to just vote their hearts and minds and then wait to see what happens.
Yeah, they could vote their heart for number one and then their practical alternative or their second choice for number two. I'm hearing that from an awful lot of voters these days. Lily Adams, Yamiche Alcindor, thank you both very much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a bunch.